Okay, I'll call our board meeting to order. Could we please have a roll call?
Ms. Grisham?
Here.
Mr. Globinger?
Here.
Ms. Oliver?
Here.
Ms. Spector Bishop?
Here.
Ms. Unical?
Yes.
Ms. Shu?
Here.
Okay, we're all here. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Before I ask for a motion to approve it, is there anything on the consent agenda anybody would like to ask be pulled off the consent agenda? Okay, seeing and hearing none, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Thank you, Janet. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Barbara. Could we please have a roll call?
Ms. Grisham?
Yes.
Mr. Globinger?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Ms. Spector Bishop?
Yes.
Ms. Unical?
Yes.
Ms. Shu?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes. Next item on the agenda is public comments. There are no public present. Comments are submitted? Okay, so there are no public comments. Next item is staff reports. Kate?
So I wanted to just remind the board that I am going to be off starting tomorrow. So I'm off for a week for vacation, and then I have surgery on the 25th, and then I'll be off for a week after that. And then I should be back, assuming all things go as planned, on September 5th, right after Labor Day. Kelly will be here, having just gotten back from vacation. I'm sure she's ready for anything fun that comes her way over the next 2 weeks. So she will be here taking care of things in my absence. Summer reading did close a couple days ago, and I thought I would have the final numbers yet, but there's still a couple kids that were coming in this week, so I don't have the final numbers. They'll be in the next report. But we did see very high signups, but even more importantly, we also saw very high participation and finishing rates, because it doesn't really help if they just sign up and don't do stuff. So our finishing numbers look to be over 50%, which is the goal is always at least 50, and that is wonderful. And we share that with the schools as well, so that will be a fun thing. I know different schools do different celebrations for that, which is kind of cool. I wanted to mention earlier today, 2 area libraries, Martin Grove and Wilmette, did receive some threats and closed. Glenview and Glencoe, on the advice of their local police departments, also closed. So I know there's already some news articles circulating. The threats were evaluated, all clears were given, but all 4 of the libraries are remaining closed throughout the day. We checked in with police, and they did not advise any closures, but they are having a stronger police presence here today and this evening, so that we have just more sight. Nothing, we have not received any phone calls or anything, but they're hanging out just in case. So, and another terrifying fun thing to deal with. On August 4th, we did have the late open, and we had our bystander intervention training. We had several board members attend, and Kelly had organized this with Right to Be and actually got us a lot of it subsidized by Rails. We opened it up to other area libraries. This was something a number of us had taken last fall, and it incorporates the 5 Ds for intervention. And it was a really helpful framework that we're going to be using to incorporate into our security and safety trainings and procedures and talking points for different situations moving forward. It really gives staff who maybe don't feel as comfortable with a direct approach alternatives that can also be beneficial, such as document or distract or delegate, call for help. And so we've gotten really positive feedback from staff. Kelly worked closely with the EDI committee on our small group discussions after, and staff had really wonderful things to say. So, Kelly is doing more debriefing and reviewing more of the survey responses, but I think that this is going to be a really helpful framework for us, and it's very easy to utilize in a number of different scenarios. So I'm excited that now we've had everyone on staff be able to take that, so we can start using it. Before, in the fall, we had, I think it was maybe about 30% of staff had been able to take it. So now everyone is aware, and this will be hopefully something that will help staff feel more aware of what actions they can take based on where their comfort level is, and something that we can use to help augment our safety and security training. I'm also happy to answer any questions any board members have from anything else in my report.
Okay,
Cool.
that's good. Thank you, Kate. Next item on the agenda is board member reports. Any board members want to report whether on the bystander intervention training or anything else?
I have something to report.
Yeah.
A few weeks ago, I stopped by to check out Tech Tuesdays, which is a regular feature here at the library. Every Tuesday. And I had originally planned on just coming and checking it out and seeing what it was like. On my way, I realized I, in fact, had a tech challenge that I needed help with. And so the extremely helpful Joe Nava sat down with me, walked me through what was probably, from his perspective, a very small. And he was able to help. And I moved along because there were other people waiting for his help. And I could see that it was a really helpful service to a lot of people, including me. So I just wanted to mention that.
I was at the
Farmers Market?
yeah, yesterday, and I did see that the staff was there. I was running late though, so I didn't get a chance to stop and spend a lot of time talking.
You could have had an opportunity to fill out for a drawing to get a free copy of Clark and Division, our One Book, One Northbrook book.
Well, it looks like I won.
Oh, so there you go. Look at that.
But no, I did see that. I saw the emails that they were there, so it was nice to see them. And I also saw the emails that went out with the summer reading numbers. So, or maybe it was a Facebook post. There was something I saw.
Oh, I missed that one. I know that when I talked to Summer, she was like, wait, we've had kids finish this week that we gave prizes, so.
It was today. I think it was a
I
Facebook
missed
post
that.
about the summer reading numbers.
Yeah, some over 3,100 kids. I don't think we have the exact numbers yet, but I think that there was.
Oh, that was approximate, okay. With good numbers.
As everyone now knows, Abby has resigned her position as a trustee, so we'll be later talking in closed session about the process replacing her. She was on the board for 7 years. It's a shame that she's no longer able to continue on, but because of her personal conflicts, she wasn't able to do so. We'll miss her. All right, next item on the agenda is unfinished business. Most of this is going to be discussions. The first of the discussions is a strategic plan update. Kate, you were going to give us a quick update.
Yeah, we had our kickoff meeting just a couple hours ago, so fresh off the presses. And so we had the committee, which includes Barbara and Stacy, participate with Amanda Standifer, our strategic plan consultant. She walked us through the timeline, and we started brainstorming for the community survey, which we plan to have ready to go right after Labor Day. So we talked a little bit about what some of the things, she shared some of the other surveys, and we talked a little bit about what some of the things we would like to see from those surveys, that also in ours, as well as some other things that we would maybe like to see, and brainstormed a bit about best ways to market it. Spoiler alert, we're going to be asking everyone sitting at this table to reach out to their personal networks to encourage people to take the survey. So just be ready for that in September. And I met with Cindy Fessmeyer, who is doing the community focus group, who's going to be organizing the community focus groups and one-on-one interviews. Kelly Durov, Linda Bering, Janet and I are going to be working with her on that piece of it. So right now we're getting our first meeting set up and are doing what is called community mapping, where essentially we list like all of the organizations, all of the different units of local government, the civic groups, the different schools, different key leaders in town, different businesses, so that we can make sure that we have a good map of all of the different areas of the community, as well as different demographics that we want to make sure that we reach out to, especially those that might not typically fill out a survey. So the goal is that the survey, they anticipate getting a 1 to 2% response. So we're probably looking at 3,500 to 7,000 people. Nope, that's 10%. 350 to 700 people. I can do math on a Thursday. I feel like we can do more. I feel like we will get more. I feel like this is a very responsive community, but that's the typical survey response rate.
And can people fill out the survey, like if they come in, will there be computers available where they could do it?
That was one of the things that we were brainstorming. So yes, we'd like to have stations set up here. I also think it would be helpful to have different like posters around town with the QR codes. We know that the village will be very helpful in pushing stuff as well as schools. So we're not going to, and we have our regular communication. So it's going to be very much a multi-pronged approach. Kelly and Linda are going to be working on defining that while I'm off and putting that whole plan together. But one of the things that we know is that the more we can reduce barriers and make it easy for people. So one of the key things is keeping the survey nice and tight and not having it be like, oh, please fill out the survey for the next hour. And I think that we all very much on the call today were in agreement. Like, we need to keep this, we need to get good information, but not at the expense of having 50 million questions. So I think Amanda and Laura, who is the survey designer, very much understood that. So yes, I think I don't know if we'll get 7,000. I would be shocked though if we didn't get at least a few thousand, just knowing our community and how they typically respond
When
to
the
things.
park districts have done it, do they?
So I know their most recent survey, they were a little disappointed in the response rate. So
I feel like there's been there's been more sort of contentious issues with the park district as well, and so I would think that would encourage people to participate, whereas like people they're going to be less likely to respond to a survey when they're happy, right? Or not necessarily.
I don't know. We have not done a community-wide survey from the library, I think since maybe like it's probably been 15 years. I mean, it was like the ones that I saw, Anna, I think were shortly after like you and Lori, like shortly before you guys started or right after you started. So it's been.
No, we've done one while I've been here.
Okay.
I know we've done one.
So sometime between 8 and 16 years ago, we've done a survey. And we've done small surveys. I think the key is going to be that word of mouth marketing. Amanda made a really good point in the meeting today. Like, if I get a survey from someone I know, I'm more likely to be like, well, I can't not fill this out if Maura asked me to do it. So I think leveraging our personal networks.
In that respect, did you talk about leveraging the friends?
Yeah, yes. And the friends Kelly and I were actually just talking about that too, of like, maybe there are other ways that they can help in addition to like, of course, sharing with their membership and asking them. But I would very much like to, if we can, get physically out in the community with iPads where we can have people like, hey, would you be willing to?
Would they let us do that
at sunset?
Maybe too late. I was thinking
and Waterway
Schermerfest.
And
but maybe that's
yeah. Schermerfest, I think actually that timeline might work. And
It's October, is it?
I can't.
it
can't quite
is
remember.
September 29th.
I can't. Sure, we can find
So
it.
I think it'll be like
When does the farmers market end?
the farmers market ends in October.
Right,
So,
maybe.
Yeah, reach out to Dale, and I'm sure. Yeah, I mean
October
there's-
1.
It's the day after
Schermerfest.
Sorry, I thought it was the day before our one book kickoff.
Oh.
It's the day after. So yes, I think if you have other ideas, let Kelly and I know, because we're, we know that the more data we get, the more it will help us inform our decisions, right? And we don't want to have to be like, well, I don't know. Is this what the whole community thinks? Only 20 people said this. We want to get as robust a response.
I would say as a general rule, you get a bigger response when you go to where the people already are. And so that's why I'm trying to think through like the farmers market or Schermerfest or anything
Or
that's
the train station.
Yeah.
Although that isn't as busy.
that's a
but
little
it
it can be a little tough just because people are in a bit of a hurry, but you could I mean
if we can do it in a way that, especially if we're physically out in the community,
Yep.
and be like, if you do this, we'll enter you for a gift card for something, or
Yeah.
you know, we have to be, as Amanda pointed out in our meeting today, we have to be a little careful if we put that on everything, because then you'll get a bunch of spam. But I think if we're doing it locally, I think that it would be easy, like, oh, yay, if you would like to be here.
Can you do it,
Oh.
like when the school dismisses, like all the parents are there waiting to pick up kids, or is that allowed?
I will speak from experience. When parents are there to pick up kids, they just want to get the heck on the road.
Some of them, the ones that, well, I can only speak for Westcott, they're there like crazy early. I don't know why they're that early, so I think, to me, that's an
How
opportunity.
like,
They're like 20 minutes early.
Yeah, like sometimes in the cold, that's like, yeah, that's why it strikes me. Like, yeah,
I'm
there's always like they were chatting and yeah.
I'm also thinking of the library. I think it's great to have terminals here in the library, absolutely. But I presume you'll leverage your own events, like when you've got an auditorium.
oh, every
Yeah.
single
Jam-packed with
every
people.
single event,
Yeah.
we'll have them do an announcement. We'll have a QR code. We'll let people know that we'll also have physical paper surveys. We're going to minimize that as much as possible.
Right.
But we know that there are some people that just won't be. We don't want to not get someone's data if
Right.
they. And then we'll have it on the slides before the auditorium. So like we have a slideshow before the auditorium programs. So we'll have one of the slides be like, take the survey. And we'll have something, you know, I was thinking not having stations set, like have them set up in the lobby. So when people are first coming in, like, hey, stop here, but also have them in like the youth services department where, you know, parents, like as their kids are playing on the iPads. And
Yeah,
they
no, I
can-
think that's fabulous.
yeah, although we don't have iPads anymore.
Did you have any conversation about different languages?
We did. And so they can only do Spanish. So we're going to be doing, we were thinking, I was thinking Korean and Russian as the two.
Yeah.
You know, especially because we know we want to reach out to the Korean Cultural Center, because we know that we have a strong partnership with them. So it makes sense to, you know, they've been a great partner for us for many years. And I think being able to amplify that. So yes. Don't know 100% exactly how, you know, how we're going to convey all of those. I think especially like we know that Russian is the second most used language, but we don't have like a group, you know, but I think the schools will be very beneficial in that regard, and being able to help us be like, hey parents, and the schools have always been so willing to help with things. We know we don't want to overwhelm things in the virtual backpacks, but I think it would be nice to.
Would it be at all helpful to reach out to some of the
Like
English language
Oh.
teachers at some of the schools? They might have
Oh, like
relationships with some of
the ELL
families.
teacher.
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah. I was thinking about Oakton, but Oakton covers such a wide
Right.
range that it doesn't
But
really.
the teachers would have,
but
they
the
might know,
teachers-
like, oh, this family member might be connected, or.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
They really can't, it's privacy stuff.
Well, not share it with us,
Not
but we
share
could
it.
say, hey, we have this survey. Would you share it with your, you know, the parents of your students?
That's how we would do it. I mean, if someone came to us, we
Yeah.
could not provide that
Yeah,
information.
Oh, no, I'm
But
not,
we
yeah,
just
okay.
say, I'll tell you what
Yeah.
we'll do.
Yeah.
We'll let them know you're looking for them.
Yes.
And they can get.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
Right.
Much
Exactly.
like we do if like someone is like, hey, you know, like we've had that happen with a couple of board members. Oh,
Me.
it was Stacy. That was the most recent one. There have been a few others through the years where there was a guy like, I went to the same alma mater. Was that what it was?
Yeah, my 83-year-old alumni best friend.
Yes. And I'm like, well, I can't give you her info, but I can take yours and pass it along. So that would be, so while we're doing this, we're also going to be working on getting all of the dates set up for the, you know, staff planning sessions, the board sessions, the, what they call like the leadership team, which is essentially the management team. So we want to, Jennifer is going to be enjoying her time while I'm gone, setting up more meetings, which I know she'll be just thrilled. But we hope to get all of those on the books as well, just to make it a little bit easier. And they're also going to be, meanwhile, Amanda and her team are also going to be pulling just a lot of background data to use. So we have the quantitative data, the qualitative data, as well as just some basic factual data from like the census and other community resources that they can pull to help have a good cross-section of information. So you can tell it's a library because we love all of the data. So yeah, I don't know. Kelly was there, Barbara, Stacy, you guys are there. Is there anything else that?
I really like those cards that you could,
Oh, the postcards.
postcards. They
Yeah.
they had the QR, you could sign in on
Uh-huh.
that, and they were very graphically interesting, where you could just say, you know, we're taking a survey, we need you, or whatever it is, and they could be left or handed out at anything. I thought that was easy and quick.
Yeah.
To put in restaurants or.
I liked the table tent idea
Mhm.
of like putting a table tent at tables in restaurants, so while people are waiting for their food, like, hey.
I will tell you that QR codes are now being used to distribute viruses. And so there is some backlash against QR codes, so I would be careful of just leaving them out.
Still, if it's clearly the source is the library, one would hope there'd be a level of.
Or do you mean
Trust.
they're hacking?
No, I mean QR codes are being used as a means for tricking people into downloading.
So then people aren't likely. Well, we would never just put the QR code because there's some people, I'm looking at Kelly because her phone doesn't like QR codes. So we would always have a bit.ly as well, like a small short URL to put on there.
I'm just saying being careful about leaving things out that are left alone, and that can be replaced with something that's, you know, deceptive.
Oh, you were going way more nefarious. I was not thinking that nefarious. You're thinking like they would take our QR code, put a different one on there.
Oh.
Oh, kind of like skimming with gas.
Creative.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I had not been thinking that dark. But that's a fair point. That's a fair point. So, yeah. So stay tuned. And not only will we be asking all of you, of course, to encourage people to fill it out. In addition to being board members, you're also residents. So don't forget to fill out the survey. Of course. And then that's 7 right there.
Off to a good start.
Yeah.
All right, Kate, so are we?
That's
done?
it, unless anyone has any questions or any other thoughts on the strategic plan stuff.
Next item is an update on Lily Zhang and the EDI project.
So we have over 80% of staff have completed the survey, which is great. Lily ended up extending it, so it'll stay open till Sunday. We shared with them that like, oh yeah, we actually have a ton of staff that work on the weekends, and they're not used to that because usually they're working with like 9 to 5 businesses. So that will hopefully get some additional respondents. When we were speaking with Lily today, they said we had 84% right today. So
That's
Wow.
remarkable. That's
84
wonderful.
84 people.
84 people.
right, but we have currently there's 110 staff, 10 of which are substitutes. So we're as the substitutes, but some of them might not have been here during the last 2 weeks. So we're counting it as 100 staff. So we're at 84%. So we're in really good shape, and we know we at this moment have enough data for the results to be very valid and useful, which is
Great.
wonderful. Yeah, and Lily, after the survey closes on Monday, Lily will be working on analyzing all of the data. They said that it takes about a month or so to put everything together, and so in looking at the timeline, we always have an all-staff meeting after the board meeting. And so September 28th would be right after the September board meeting, and we're hoping that they'll be able to have the results ready then in order to share the draft with the board and the staff, and then also kick it off with the staff. Depending on how long it takes, if we can have it for the board at the September 21st meeting, that is the ideal, but we also don't want Lily to have to rush in order just to meet that deadline. I wanted to float the idea. I know we are going to be doing stuff with appointing a new trustee, so there will be other special meetings, but to see what the board thought about doing a special meeting on the 26th or the 28th of September to have the presentation on the results from the survey then.
You know, until you know that the presentation will be ready, I don't know if we want to schedule, because now you're doing what you just said you didn't want to do, which is putting Lily in the position of having to meet that deadline.
Lily feels very confident in the September 28th. It was the September 21st that they were a little leery of.
Okay.
So I guess I'm just floating the idea of conceptually, would that be
Mm-hmm.
One of those dates.
one of those days? Okay.
It's being a Thursday.
Yes.
So we would do the 20, we would, when you say one of those dates, would we possibly move the meeting on the 21st to the 28th? Or are we talking about an additional meeting? Just to clarify, additional,
Special
oh, okay.
meeting.
All right.
I didn't even think
Oh,
about
I just
moving
wasn't
it, but
sure.
we could.
Okay, I wasn't sure where we were
We
going
could
with it.
move
Okay.
it. Neither of them are on a holiday. Jennifer checked for me.
The 26th is the night of the Village of Northbrook board meeting that you're going to ask people to attend.
Oh my gosh, you're right. September 26th is that day.
And by people, do you mean us people?
Yes.
Okay.
No, you were there. I'm just kidding.
Never.
So I don't think you want to move
Right.
the regular meeting, so it have
Right.
to be a special.
And what's the, why are we attending the 26th? Or
Uh,
are we, is that
book
the
sanctuary.
Oh, okay, okay, got it.
Yeah, sorry. Stacy's
good.
spoiling my fun. I asked. No, it's really the magic that you scheduled two meetings. You must have done, 'cause all the dates get so mixed in my head. Yeah. So conceptually, it sounds like yes. And then when I get back, I'll have a better sense from Lily about how likely that is in terms of the timing and everything. So,
Okay.
so tentatively say the 28th.
So we'd be attending, we'd have a meeting on the 21st, the 26th, and the 28th?
Yes, that sounds like an awful lot. Yes, yes. The 26th, it would be more of a drive-by.
Okay.
So just to, I mean, that is the next, can I just, hey Jay, is there
Yeah.
I don't have anything else for the Lily Zhang EDI update. Unless anyone has questions.
Does anyone have questions about the dates?
I'm a little confused about.
So
what
is
they're-
everybody,
Yeah.
so.
I'm gonna clarify in our next agenda item.
Okay.
I was just making a note on the dates.
Perfect.
You said 28
Yeah.
tentatively?
And that would be a shifted board meeting?
No,
Or an
it's not
An
additional?
additional meeting.
So it'll be 2 weeks in a row with board meetings for the library on Thursdays.
Good thing we like each other.
And then,
If you like to switch, okay, we'll move on to the next agenda item, Kate.
okay, so for the book sanctuary, I've given the draft to the village to look over. I'm waiting to hear back from Catherine Ciesla on it. In talking with Kara Pavlicek, the village manager, she would she is suggesting that the village board adopt the resolution at the September 26th board meeting. And
September 21st.
September 21st is our meeting.
Yeah, are you suggesting we adopt it or they adopt it?
They adopt it.
Okay. But at what point in time do we need to approve it to?
So we're gonna look at it today, and then we'll have one more opportunity in September. Although ideally, I think we want it to be to them. So okay, let me take a step back. So last month we talked about the resolution of asking the village to adopt a resolution to make Northbrook a book sanctuary. And I shared a sample draft resolution. I will say that Janet had some really brilliant suggestions to clarify things. So I've updated 2 of the sentences in there where it says on the second page of whereases. I'm gonna scroll.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have had a lot of technology issues and my computer is still not 100% behaving well. So where it says lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, and plus themes or with LGBTQ plus characters have been banned in the United States, changing it to have been banned at schools and libraries in the United States, just to provide a little bit more clarity around the language, which I agree sounds much better. If anyone else on the board has anything else they'd like to see changed or adjusted, I can make those adjustments. And then we don't need to adopt it. We're essentially just asking the village to adopt it. And I think it would be a great opportunity for anyone on the board who is available on the 26th to come with me to the village board meeting as they're doing this. I think it would be a nice opportunity for photos and just to show, you know, the mutual support for this. And then ideally, if we can get a photo, of course, Linda can use that in some of our marketing that we have planned around this as well. This is right before Banned Books Week, which is October 1st to the 7th. So the timing on this is looking pretty good. So September 21st, regular board meeting. September 26th, you wouldn't have to come here. You would just have to go next door to the village for that portion of the meeting. And of course, you can stay. It can often be quite interesting to stay for the whole meeting. And then September 28th, tentatively doing the Lily Zhang presentation with the survey results. So that would be the September 21st one is a firm, we're going to have a board meeting. The other two are more flexible. So those are the dates. Does anyone have any other suggestions or changes or thoughts about the resolution?
Any comments at all?
People okay with it?
You don't expect there to be any pushback at the meeting, do they?
Mm-hmm. I expect that they might get some written comments after. I expect we might as well, just from people that have typically been vocal about our collections in the past.
Yeah, I do suspect that some of the language is going to make us a target. Which raises the question, do we need that to be as specific as some of this is?
Really, we can change anything in here.
The negative is that is perceived as ignoring some of the issues. I think that some more staff might be offended if we did that.
I think some of our community would be too, because there are people in our communities that are part of, you know, these groups. I feel like this is something that, as a library, intellectual freedom and having a diverse, like, if there is anything we stand for, I feel like this is a core library thing. So I feel that we have talking points and all sorts of things in place for staff if we do get additional pushback. But I think that this sends a very strong message about what a library is, which I think is a good thing. So I think even if we do get some negative comments from this, this is the thing. If we're going to stand for something, it feels like is a good thing to stand for. But ultimately, it is, you know, if the board like, we certainly can, if you feel like, oh, well, yes, agreed, and maybe we could still soften some of the language, of course.
I think it's important. And I think that having the village board approve it is a wonderful statement for a community. So I'm all for it.
Two questions. One is the inclusion of specific books that have been banned. Once you start including specifics, but you're not including like an exhaustive list, like how does that get edited down? So Like, I think that's sort of like, you're gonna put in, you know, I'm not sure how many titles are here, maybe 6. Obviously, there's, I'm sure, hundreds of books that have been banned, so.
Unfortunately true.
Yeah. So I think that's my only hesitation with including specific titles, is that you're clearly not including other titles. And I, you know, are they the most banned? Are they the most controversial? Are they the most recently banned? So I think that sort of poses some questions. My other question is really just grammatic. Why is it in this, I should know, it's an embarrassing question, but grammatically, why don't you put underline or put things in quotes when they're in the text?
I researched it. They said not to.
It's a little weird to read
Yeah.
it that way. Like, it feels awkward. Like, am I reading
Yeah.
the title? Am I continuing to read
I
the
don't know. I mean, Jay, in
Yeah.
attorney world.
Yes.
Well, I don't write briefs a lot, so you're asking the wrong attorney.
Okay.
It's consistent with AP style, which would be what every publication, most publications use. I don't know that that would apply to
I think that'd be more
Village of
appropriate.
Northbrook documents.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for a legal guide, I haven't looked at one in years, but it's a little bit different than AP style guide, I can tell you that.
I don't have a good
Okay.
answer.
All right. I was just curious. So that's my concern about having specific books listed, is that we're, obviously there's a list of books that have been banned, and we picked from that. So.
We did.
Yeah.
I agree.
I don't know how, I know you're waiting to hear back from the village president. I am curious as to whether they might ask for a little more clarification on section 3, which talks about their stance toward businesses, organizations, and government entities that encourage or accomplish the banning of books in any manner. What does shall not offer support mean?
So, in the other libraries that have adopted book sanctuary, other cities, Chicago and Oak Park being the most recent in our area, a lot of them have put specific financial requirements of like, we shall not give you X. And that felt like a lot.
Yeah.
And so I toned down the language to just say, shall not offer support, without defining what support meant, as a way of saying, we do not support this, or we, you know, they could choose to, we do not support this, and that means that, you know, anyone that, you know, actively seeks to ban, we're gonna not insert, you know, whatever.
It's for the village board to say how they want to define this.
Yep.
Another way to reword this is to flip it to the positive, which is, will actively support and celebrate businesses and organizations and governments that you know, does not ban books. Or I'm trying to write on the
That's
fly here.
fair.
It's not really working, but unless the village really had some sort of well-defined way of expressing its lack of support. You could say, celebrate, actively celebrate, promote, and acknowledge, or you know, and that flips it to the positive side.
Yeah.
You have to change the end of that sentence.
So something along the lines of like, the village shall actively, you said support,
Celebrate, support, and, well, what did I say? And acknowledge. I
and
think.
acknowledge.
Recognize.
Businesses, organizations, and government entities that
encourage intellectual freedom and
intellectual
free
freedom and
exchange
free
of
exchange,
ideas,
yeah.
including the
Yeah.
reading of banned and challenged books.
Mhm. Yes.
Yeah, where is in here does it talk about intellectual freedom?
Well-
That phrasing specifically.
Intellectual freedom means having the ability to, I don't, did I say that?
Individuals have the right to free inquiry. That's in the first. Right to freedom of opinion and expression.
Yeah, we referenced the ALA Bill of Rights, which has intellectual freedom in it. I might not say it elsewhere. Are you thinking don't put it in because?
I think you should put it there. I think intellectual freedom
Oh,
is the
yeah.
type of issue that should be kind of highlighted when you're supporting something.
Yeah.
Referencing being a sanctuary. On the second page, the last whereas, it talks about adopting a collection of policy, development policy that supports a fair, equitable, and accessible collection.
Mhm.
I know that's an action we've already done, but when
Mhm.
you're talking about what the village supports, nowhere in here does it say that the village supports adopting that specific act.
I don't think we want them to support the adoption of that because it implies that they have the authority to tell us what should or should not be adopted.
I'm not suggesting that at all. I'm suggesting that that phrase is a fair, equitable, and accessible collection should be reflected somewhere within the actual resolutions. It should be supported. Not the adoption, but the fair, equitable, and accessible
Gotcha,
collection.
okay. So whereas the library has adopted this,
Yeah, they support that concept of having a fair, equitable, and accessible collection. That to me sounds like an overriding theme of, being a book sanctuary. Here's section 5 on book sanctuary actions.
Mhm.
The first point, I would actually take out the reference to Black, Indigenous, people of color, and LGBTQ, because that limits the type of stories that you're supporting. That language is expanding upon what you're doing, it's limiting it. So if you just simply say, starting with stories that are most often challenged, it's any story that's challenged, whether on religion, race,
Yep.
sexual.
Yeah, I like that.
yeah,
That's smart.
yeah,
Starting with stories that are most often challenged. I think
Yep.
that covers it.
yep.
Exactly right.
You've already talked about the
Yep.
LGBT
Mhm.
issues in the whereas clauses.
I had a book challenge because a parent thought that there were witches and black magic, and it was for a kindergartner, and she was sure. So you can't cover all the areas.
Correct.
Right. And there
Yeah,
are
that's
religious,
excellent.
basis for,
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
challenging books. There are bases on, well, we've seen it in the communication we receive, concern about grooming or sexual and inappropriate. So it goes beyond just
Right.
the specifics of,
Mm-hmm.
any. Those are my thoughts.
All right, so I have that.
Oh, there was one other thing.
Yeah.
In section 5, your number 2.
Yep.
It says lending ban books, friends, and neighbors. I think you're missing the word 2.
You should not lend your friends and neighbors. I agree. Thank you. So I have the changes to 5. I have the changes that Janet suggested earlier in the week that I already mentioned, as well as the changes to
Section 3.
Section 3, and adding in the village supporting having a fair, equitable, and accessible collections for the public. I think the only remaining question then is having the list of titles in the 3 whereases on the first and second pages. I will say that one of the reasons I have specific titles in there is from a educating the public standpoint. A lot of people are like, well, no, I mean, Yeah, book banning is wrong, but some of those books, you got to admit, they're not that great. And so by specifying several common, well-known books, like Brave New World, Handmaid's Tale, people are like, oh, it's so we can certainly, like I went back and forth, like, should we have titles? Should we not have titles? So
I think you do say including, and you're not being comprehensive.
Yeah.
I
And
mean-
and I just picked ones that I thought would resonate most. Like, how could you be upset about a families book? Like, it's really sweet. The illustrations are adorable. So
I think without having like
the qualifier.
and I think because of the fact that the problem with this is the people who are so often advocating for certain books to be banned haven't read them, and if we don't have the, like, you're referencing the book here,
Mhm.
but it's not something that it's sort of, I think it's still sort of, it should, yes, and I think it should be more about it should be more unbiased and not sort of like, how could you ban this one, I think it should be more about the principle than the actual texts, maybe, I'm not sure,
That is true.
so.
Because it doesn't actually matter what is in any
Right,
of them.
right.
It's about having equal access
Right.
to all materials.
Right.
It's true. I agree.
Yeah, I guess that is true. It really
Yeah.
isn't about the actual books, yeah.
It really isn't. All right, so it sounds like then if we just take those out,
From all of the sections.
that sounds good. I'll send a clean copy of this out to everyone so you have it. And if you have any, if I missed anything or you have any other suggestions, please let me know. And then Jennifer's going to send an email out next week asking officially who would be available on the 26th to come to the village board meeting.
I think I can, I just have to check family schedule.
It's going to be so fun. You could bring them with. Perfect. Everyone can come. Bring everyone. Bring.
My 11-year-old is all worked up about banning books, so she would happily attend.
I would.
And if you give the microphone,
that.
she'll
I mean, maybe we have Rita read it. That could be right. Okay, great.
Any other comments, questions, concerns, compliments? All right, we'll move on to new business then. The first item in the new business is the staff and board communication. This is a follow-up to the meeting last month where we talked about wanting to improve the communication between the board and staff so that there's a little bit more of an understanding on staff's part as to the role of the board and the decision-making and the reasoning behind some of our decisions. So we'll talk a little bit about some things that has been suggested by staff who have given some feedback. So things we can do in the board meetings, and then also things we might do outside of the board meetings going forward. You'd also mentioned that Sarah Scodius and Michelle Mistowski are starting to collect staff questions, bring to the board that we'll have at the September meeting, because that was one discussion last month.
And we held off on getting those because we wanted people to do the Lily Zhang survey. So we have not solicited. That was the original plan, was to have them for this meeting.
So some of the suggestions are having us as the board explain more on the why behind the decision. And so one thought about that is, if you watch the village board and how they go about voting, one of the things that is a little bit different between their procedure and ours, when they are casting their votes, each of the board members will give an explanation as to a little bit about why they're voting the way they're voting. So when Jennifer would do a roll call on roll call votes, we might individually say a few words and then say, this is the reason why I'm, voting yay, nay, or however you're voting.
Do they do that for every vote or just sort of
They tend to do it a fair amount.
fair amount?
I don't know if it's every single one, but
Yeah.
it's anything I think that
It's
maybe isn't
significant.
cut and dried.
Yeah, and a lot of times when it's something that's of a big public interest.
Yeah, well, that.
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and we don't have to do everyone either, but the ones where, maybe a significant issue, like last month, when we're getting to dealing with the salary, schedule.
Yeah.
So that would be a different way of, actually casting the vote. So now, anyone who's watching the online replay or, streaming the meeting can hear us as we're voting, explain individually why we voted the way we voted. And also gives the public, when, it comes time for reelection, to have a little bit of something they want to go back on to say, okay, well, I know a little more about your history, your thinking, and now we're being grilled again about wanting to run again.
Sounds like you want to do like a greatest hits compilation for the elections.
No, I'm just saying that there's more, material out there
Yeah.
about why we do it. Suggestions that we attend some of the library and staff events, but the staff do have mixed feelings about it. Not because they don't like us personally, but because having us at, events changes some of the dynamics for them. Talk about having us in the admin leadership explain more about the role of the board when they're doing project updates. So it's more the admin leadership, not us. So it's really Kate having her managerial staff explaining to the rest of their teams why it is or how it is we're involved or what our role is relative to decision making. And then the other idea was following along the idea of having the monthly question, having an annual Q&A with staff submitting questions ahead of time so that we can do maybe a longer list of questions. So those are just some thoughts. Any responses, ideas or thoughts about what's preferable, what's not preferable?
I think more is better. I mean, a multi-pronged approach.
Right?
I think if there are certain staff events that they would like us to attend, then I think, but then I think none of us are gonna be insulted if they're like, but maybe not this one, or yes, you're invited to this one. I think they can sort of.
It doesn't have to be all of us either. It can
Yeah.
be those of us who are available or
Right.
one or two of us, so any given month isn't, all of us going constantly.
One of the things in school boards is there's always, in some cases, union, but staff representation. And perhaps it wouldn't be so terrible if a representative from the staff came to a board meeting, not having to say anything, but actually being aware of who we are, how we make decisions. I think that it wouldn't hurt to have them do a little bit of that too.
I think they do. I think that the staff also watch the streaming, so that time-wise, if it doesn't work out for them, they're able to go and,
Do they?
tomorrow and
Yeah, there's,
Okay.
Kate does get feedback that they're watching.
yep, they're there now. Hi, everyone who's watching.
The streams get about 25 views on average every month, and I would say a majority of those are staff.
Oh, that's great.
I just would,
But having them physically here, you mean?
right, I think that an invitation to say we maybe a representative, one person, or I don't know, I think it's not meant to be a punishment, but if they're interested, it would be nice to have them in person.
Wouldn't want to
Well,
impose on any of their time, but I'm glad
We
that
do,
they.
we do on a regular
watch the
basis
streams
invite
and
staff to
watch it.
come to present to us,
Right,
so that, in those meetings, we do have that. The staff that are invited for the presentation or asked to make the presentation coming and talking directly. There was some suggestions about, that kind of activity taking place on a larger scale at a specific time and place. I told Kate I prefer to keep it where we have, staff coming in on a regular basis, because I think it helps us not to get overwhelmed, but it's also nice to have at each meeting something different presented to us. Even if, a year ago we had the youth services department, present, to have them present again, so we get more updates or changes and, different things. And I use them as an example, but I do like having the staff presentations because I think it helps us get a better understanding of the day-to-day. One of the things that Kate and I talked about is, want to make sure staff understands that we are not going to be involved in the day-to-day management. We're at a higher level in terms of the decision-making. We're looking at policy, we're looking at finances, we're looking at budget, but we're not trying to micromanage what Kate is doing. We're not trying to micromanage
We
what her
only
staff
have
are
one
doing.
employee.
Right. And she's,
Listen to your orientation.
she is reiterating that, so staff have an understanding of, how the interplay works from that level. But, I think staff does like for us to be a little bit more well-known to them.
They like us to be attending more of the library events just in general. I mean, because that I can certainly participate.
I mean, I think that that is a really good way to, see, like, kind of like what Janet, maybe not to the, you've been very
Yeah.
diligent about visiting things, which is awesome. But I think, like, I put in the board packet, like, One Book, One Northbrook, the kickoff is coming up on September 30th. Oh, I guess that would make it 4 things in 1 week. Okay, so, and of course, like, we typically haven't, like, recognizing that you are all volunteers, like, I'm very cognizant that you're already giving, time and effort, but certainly outreach events, if the board would like to come and be present at outreach events or at events, I can certainly start putting in more, like, I do a lot of like, oh, this event happened, but I know you guys get the newsletter and all of the different things, but certainly we can pick a few events each month to be like, hey, this might be fun for the board.
That'd be great.
I think it would be helpful if, like, you give us a couple suggestions on things like you think are appropriate, and then we can all, look at schedules and kind of think ahead a little bit.
I think I kind of, honestly, I got a little out of it, or out of the habit of it during COVID, and I just haven't really gotten,
Absolutely.
embarrassingly enough, haven't really gotten back into
Nope,
it. So.
I don't. I think that you are amongst most. So I'm right there with you. I also think, like the bystander intervention training, I think having at some of our safety and security training, especially as the board has now experienced some additional interactions, that there's some of the stuff that we're doing that it might be not only beneficial from a relationship building perspective, but also just from a board knowledge. I know that, not everyone is able to get away in the middle of the day, which is when we often have these, but I think that having, as Janet said, a multi-pronged approach, right? We'll do that for everything. I think that could be really beneficial. I know in the past for like staff development day, there were specific times, and this was the first year we were back in person since COVID, but like even maybe just having the board be present at the end of the day when we talk about the year ahead and celebrate staff anniversaries. Usually it would be like we would have, like Carlos or Jay would come, but maybe it is more like the board coming to celebrate, especially when we're celebrating all of those years of service. While I share that at the board meeting, that I think is another good opportunity.
Yeah.
So I'll start putting in events to come in the board packet, and what does the board think about doing things at different outreach events? We would not expect you to be there and be versed on all of the things and talking about all of the things. It would more be there as like,
Participant. Yeah.
I'm a board member. Hello. Do you like the library? Kind of a thing.
I can totally do that.
Yeah, right? You would not have to be like, and here's how to sign up for a library card. We would not be asking you. So, okay.
Any final questions, comments? Okay. The next 2 items on the agenda are trustee vacancy appointment and the discussion about the heating, ventilating, air conditioning, chiller repairs. For those, we are possibly going into closed session. If there is a motion to go into executive session pursuant to the Illinois statute 5 ILCS 120-2 section C3, for the selection of a person to fill a public office is defined in the act, including a vacancy in a public office where the public body is given the power to appoint under law and ordinance, or under 5 ILCS 122 C11 litigation, when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting. Is there such a motion?
So moved.
Thank
Second.
you. Stacy, is there a second?
A second.
Thank you, Jamie. Can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Christian?
Yes.
Mr. Glovinger?
Yes.
Ms. Oliver?
Yes.
Inspector Bishop?
Yes.
Ms. Unical?
Yes.
Ms. Shu?
Yes.
Okay, we're going to close. Okay, we are back in the main session at 8:59 PM. Next item on the agenda is agenda building. For our next month on the agenda, building is auditorium rentals presentation, a draft tax levy presentation, the 2024 closing schedule, audit presentation by Selvin Fox. Those are our auditors. Staff questions for the board. A final account of all fiscal year 23 monies received or expended. We will have a director review and personnel policy updates, as well as picking up again on the continuation of the trustee vacancy appointment and discussion about HVAC chiller repairs. Anything else anyone who should be on the agenda next month? Hey,
No, you want to add anything?
nothing to add. I will adjourn the meeting at 9 PM.